Sora ignored the feeling of feathers around his throat, and the weight of an overlarge duck and a giant dog man. Despite the huge grin on his face, all he could think about was one thing. Get off! He struggled to remove Donald's feathery hands from his throat and tried to get himself into a sitting position in order to look around. Keyword, tried. For at least 10 seconds, all he could see and feel were the salty waters of the ocean that Destiny Islands rested upon, as well as the hands and faces of his two animal friends. Needless to say, at their joy of seeing him, when they knocked him into the ocean, they could have forgotten the need for him to breathe. Sora finally freed himself from their combined weight and opted to get a glance at his surroundings as he sat up. Unfortunately, Donald and Goofy started to hug him and rub their faces against his the moment he was free of the water, chuckling and giggling the whole while. Not that he minded, of course. He, Donald, and Goofy looked over to the right to see Riku and King Mickey having just separated from a hug, looking a little bashful. Sora looked in front of him to see his longtime friend Kairi standing just out of the water's reach, smiling at him. She cocked her head slightly at her smile, and her smile got a little wider, revealing the more perfectly white teeth as she giggled lightly. For some reason, Sora felt a few butterflies in his stomach. That was a little weird, Sora thought, and he almost began to wonder if fighting Heartless and the organization for so long had made him weird. Before he began such a train of thought, however, he looked into one of the back pockets and pulled out the good luck talisman made of the solace shells that he promised to give back to Kairi. There was a strange tingling sensation that was utterly foreign to him pulsing through his body as he looked fondly at the charm in his hand. Kairi. He looked up to see her, still smiling ear to ear. Before he knew it, he felt a weird sensation in him. It felt like Roxas. Of course, he and Roxas were one and the same thing. Roxas was a part of him. Before the sensation ended, he directed his attention back to Kairi. But he noticed something different. Instead of Kairi, Sora thought he saw someone that looked just like Kairi, except with blonde hair and wearing a white dress. Naminé. He imagined he saw her for only a moment, but she and Kairi were the same as he and Roxas were. As the blonde girl melted back into the auburn-haired friend Sora knew, he became numb to everything around him. The merry-making joy spreading animal friends, Riku's small smirk as he observed Sora and Kairi staring into each other's eyes. Even the wet feeling of the water he was still sitting in, all he could see was Kairi. Everything else was a blur, or maybe that was some seawater in his eyes. He wiped his eyes with the back of his gloved hand and looked back at Kairi, suddenly realizing, as he tried to speak, his tongue was exponentially dry. We are back, he finally managed to sputter out. Kairi bent down and offered him a hand. You're home, was all she said, she still smiling sweetly. Sora grinned and clasped her hand in his, still holding the talisman. Kairi pulled him up and ended wrapping him in a light hug, as he fell into her while trying to steady himself. Sora felt his face growing hot and quickly turned away before she could see. Kairi, though, had also begun to blush, and lightly pushed him as she turned to her right. This way Sora and the others wouldn't see her face. However, Kairi's push, though light, was enough to send an already unstable Keyblade Master face first into the ocean. Again. Well, at least the water should cool down my face, Sora thought, as everyone, including Kairi, looked over and started to laugh. Though the incredible distraction of laughing, Kairi managed to wrestle control of her facial features. Sora flipped over onto his back, chuckling himself. His sense of being no longer numb, he stood back up, making sure he was steady, and looked around. A sense of torturous longing overtook him as he soaked in his surroundings. The wooden buildings he, Riku, and the others had constructed, the dock, the little islet with the paopu tree, the vines that covered the secret place, they all rushed into him in a single moment. His eyes watered, and a tear threatened to fall as he took everything in. He was home. Home. So many things meant home to him, as they assailed his already veined mind. His home, his house, his boat, Titus, Waka, Selfie, his other friends, the ice cream parlor. He'd have to tell them about sea salt ice cream. His skateboard, Riku, Kairi, his mom. Sora's eyes widened in shock and fear, giving sudden new meaning to the phrase, dry as a bone. Oh crap. Mom is going to kill me, he moaned. King Mickey laughed. Welp, we better get you guys home then. It's starting to darken out here, he said in a high-pitched, squeaky voice that can cause a person to laugh if they've never heard it before. Sora began to feel warm inside, just as the king's assurance, even if he still felt fear of what his mother would do when she found out he had been swimming in his clothes. But your majesty, Kairi began as she started looking over Sora and Riku, we only have 3 boats, and Sora and Riku look as tired as the living dead. How are we supposed to get back? How are we supposed to get the 6 of us back to the main island? Mickey pondered for a minute or two before he regained his cheerful disposition as he found a solution. Well, Princess, you and Sora can go in one boat, Riku and Goofy in another. Donald and I will go in the last one, Mickey replied. Please, just call me Kairi, Kairi said in a lightly exasperated, slightly humored voice, while she turned slightly pink at the cheeks. She still wasn't used to being a princess. Our boats are still here? Sora questioned with a puzzled on his worn face. But we've been gone for a year, Riku finished with a chuckle. Maybe so, Sora, but we've carved those boats. They should last for quite a while. Yeah, I guess so, Sora stated. He was quickly recovering some of his vigor from being around his friends. Not that he was going to deny he was dead tired from fighting Xemnas and around 1,000 dusks. They began untying the boats, and each got into an arrangement King Mickey suggested. Don't worry, Sora, I'll row us home, Kairi said in a comforting tone. Sora could barely mutter a thank you as his eyelids started to droop. He couldn't remember how long it took him to get back. Normally it would take about 10 minutes for him or Kairi a year ago, but with the extra weight and the fact he was half asleep, all Sora could say that was far darker when they hit the shore. He dimly noted someone heaving him to his feet and settling their shoulder into his armpit, while wrapping one arm around his shoulder. Said person began leading him away from the boat and the beach. Sora's curiosity took hold of him, and he slowly raised his head to take a look around him. He was left part of the middle of the group of travelers. He dimly registered that Riku was being led by Goofy. This knowledge took hold of his brain, so if Goofy was with Riku and King and Donald are too short to be carrying him, that means that it's Sora flushed red and desperately hoped that the darkness was enough to hide his red cheeks, also praying to Zeus that the night was strong enough to smother the heat coming from his 2 broiling hot frying pans that were his cheeks. Easy there, Sora, Kairi said as she caught him. Her sweet voice caressed his weary mind. In his weak state, he finally noticed her perfume for the first time. It was a strangely sweet aroma, vanilla, honey, and strawberries. In the darkening distance, Riku smirked. By Calypso, she smells good, Sora thought, with the blush still growing stronger. Come on, Kairi said as they reached the cobblestone road. Just 1 foot in front of the other, Sora. He nodded. Her sweet voice and intoxicatingly wonderful fragrance gave him the strength he needed to keep going. He began to fear that he would go numb again. After what seemed like an eternity, Kairi led them up to Sora's front walk. This is your house, Sora? Quacked Donald, looking at the split level. Sora rolled his head to look up at his home. He had to fight back tears again. He looked at the peach paint and the ladder front lights. The screen door. Has it really been this long? He thought. Yep, he said, still holding the reservoir in his eyes back. Goofy, he yucked as he made his way to the door. Come on, Donald, let's see if Sora's mother's home. He chortled. Donald suddenly rounded on Sora, who was still being supported by the heavenly figure of Kairi. Whack! Donald cried. In all our time traveling, you never mentioned a word to me about your mother. The duck was so flabbergasted you, Sora, and Kyrie could barely make out a word he said. Sorry, Donald. I guess I forgot, Sora said apologetically to Donald, with a small, nervous grin on his face. Kyrie giggled. Hurry up, Donald. I wonder if there are pictures of Sora as a little kid in the front hallway, Goofy called, being completely oblivious to the magician's frustration. Already one hand on the screen doors handled. Hey, it's unlocked, he said aloud as he opened it. Sora's eyes widened once more in fear, again forgetting about tears. Hey, I want to see those two. Maybe I can use them in the journal, Jiminy Cricket said as he made his appearance, leaping out of Sora's pocket and bounced his way into the house after Donald and Goofy. Oh no, he said quietly to Kyrie as she led him into his house. She gave him an inquisitive look. Now I'm going to be embarrassed by my friends again, and this time it won't be because I'm clumsy. They both giggled as he stepped into the house. Sora inhaled a deep breath through his nose as he looked around. The house still smelled the same. Home, Sora thought. I'm finally home. The sensation lasted for at least a minute as Sora looked around the hallway. He could see the dark outline of the kitchen counter at the end of his sight. The familiar clock on the microwave read 1945. Wow, it's only 7:45 and I'm not even hungry. I'm sure we arrived back at 6 at the latest. He continued soaking in his surroundings at his internal ocean of tears, once again threatening to burst the dikes. There were the pictures taken of him when he was growing up hanging on the wall, all of which being thoroughly examined by Goofy and Jiminy. There was a bouquet of marigolds on the table. He could hear the cuckoo clock ticking on the wall. He chuckled to himself as he reminded him of the clock in the crocodile that ate Captain Hook's left hand. Just the sight of everything had so long ago seemed as trivial and routine brought back memories. Memories like him sitting on the table at 5 with tears in his eyes, his mother wrapping a bandage on his scraped knee and kissing it better. Coming home from school at 7 with Riku and Kyrie to find his mother in the living room with an apron on, while an apple pie cooled on the table. All the good memories came flooding back into his conscious mind. You sure had a good childhood, didn't you? A voice in the back of his head. Sora frowned slightly. Is that you, Roxas? Sora thought. Yep. Good, Sora thought with a smile on his face. I wanted to make sure it wasn't some random freeloader. Ha ha. Good to be home? Kyrie asked him as she released him. Yeah, Sora replied, taking a step forward by himself. Donald quickly saw that Sora could now walk on his own and nudged Goofy, being careful not to upset Jiminy, who was precariously perched on Goofy's hat. Okay, now let's go find Sora's mother, he quacked, a grin on his face. Donald cupped his wings to his beak and began calling, Oh, Mrs. Sora, we have a surprise for you. Mrs. Sora, Goofy began calling as he wandered into the living room's doorway. Your son's He never finished the sentence as a very large and familiar frying pan hit him in the face. Goofy backed out of the living room doorway, holding his nose. Gosh, that hurts, he mumbled. Who are you? Questioned a strange yet beautiful motherly voice. At least to Sora it was beautiful and motherly. To everyone else besides Kyrie it was a little harsh. Out of the shadows, wielding a large cast iron frying pan, stepped Sora's mother. She stood around 4'9", had shoulder-length chocolate hair that was wrapped up in a towel. She was wearing a clean white nightgown that went just down above her ankles. She would have been angelic to Sora if it weren't for the frying pan and angry face. She continued interrogation of Goofy, Donald, and Jiminy. What do you want? She ordered. I can have you arrested. This is Sora cut her off before she could finish. Mom? Yes, with a quiver in his voice. And that was the end of Chapter 1 of The Annals of Darkness, Part 1, The Beginning. I am Anime Guy Kurosaki1, and I will be continually reading the Kingdom Hearts over the coming weeks. If you would like to show up on the show and be a voice for a character, please just message me on Skype at AnimeGuyKurosaki1 or message me on Twitter at AnimeGuy01. This has been Kingdom Hearts Annals of Darkness. Until then.